Have you ever thought about just how incredible animal senses are?
Yeah.
Like we humans, we depend so much on our sight, but for a lot of animals, smell, that's their superpower.
Yeah, it's amazing.
How on earth do salmon find their way back to their birth stream after years and years in the ocean?
Right.
Or dogs. We all know how good dogs are at sniffing things out.
Mm.
But they can find missing people. They can smell diseases.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible how important smell is in the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
Not just for survival, but for, finding food and navigating, recognizing their family, even sensing if there's danger.
It really blows my mind what's happening at the molecular level.
Well, it all starts with these specialized neurons up in your nose.
Okay.
And these neurons, they've got receptors that are like tiny sensors.
Uh-huh.
And they pick up these odor molecules from the air. So when a molecule bumps into a receptor, it triggers a signal.
Right.
And that signal, it goes up to the brain, and that's what we know as a smell.
So is it like a lock and key? Like
Yeah.
the shape of the molecule has to fit perfectly into the receptor?
That's the traditional theory, and it makes sense at first. But then there's all these weird things that don't really fit that lock and key model.
Like what?
Well, like musk molecules, they all smell musky, but they have all these different shapes.
Ah.
And then there's these mirror image molecules, like limon. It's what gives oranges that citrusy smell.
Okay.
And then there's dipentine, and that smells like turpentine.
Yeah.
And they have the same shape, but they smell totally different.
So if the shape isn't the whole story, what else is there? What's the missing piece?
Well, this is where this thing called the vibration theory of smell comes in.
Okay.
And it kind of shakes things up a bit. This theory, the scientist Luca Turin, he came up with it, and he suggested that maybe our noses are detecting the vibrations of the molecules, not just the shape.
Wait, vibration. So like there's like a whole tiny symphony going on in our noses.
Exactly. Every molecule, it's constantly vibrating, and it's got its own unique frequency, kind of like a fingerprint. Turin thought that maybe these olfactory receptors, they're sensitive to these tiny vibrations.
Okay.
And that's how we can tell smells apart.
So how are these vibrations actually picked up? Do our noses act like little tuning forks, picking up specific frequencies?
Well, that's the crazy part. Turin's theory, it uses this thing called inelastic electron tunneling spectroscopy.
Inelastic what now?
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
Okay.
It's also called IETs.
Okay.
And it's based on this idea that electrons can basically tunnel through these little gaps, even if they don't really have enough energy to do it. And while they're tunneling, they can run into the vibrations of nearby molecules.
Uh-huh.
And they lose or gain a little energy.
Okay, so you're saying our noses are doing these mini quantum experiments every time we smell something.
That's the whole idea behind the vibration theory. The thought is that these receptors, they're acting like tiny IES devices.
Right.
They're detecting these vibrational frequencies of the molecules using these tunneling electrons.
Wow, that's a really wild concept. Is there any evidence to actually back up this theory?
Yeah, actually, one of the most convincing pieces of evidence came from Turin himself.
Okay.
He used his theory to predict the smell of these things called boranes. They're these molecules that have this boron-hydrogen bond, and it vibrates at a frequency very similar to the sulfur-hydrogen bond in smelly sulfur compounds.
So he predicted that boranes would smell like rotten eggs.
Yeah, pretty much.
Was he right?
Yeah, he was.
Wow.
It was a huge deal because nobody had ever done that before, predicted a smell just from the vibrational properties.
Okay, that's really cool. But has this theory been universally accepted? Are all scientists convinced about these quantum noses?
Not quite. Even though Turin's work was really innovative, the vibration theory has caused a lot of debate in the science world.
Right.
Some studies support his findings, others don't. It's still a really hot area of research.
So there's a healthy scientific debate going on around this idea. What are some of the arguments against the vibration theory?
Well, one of the biggest challenges comes from those mirror image molecules we talked about, the limon and dipentine.
Yeah.
They have the exact same vibrational frequencies, but they smell completely different. So it makes you wonder if vibration can really explain the whole complexity of smell.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So where does that leave us? Is it like a tie between shape and vibration?
Not necessarily. Because of all this debate, there's been some cool new models that try to combine both shape and vibration. And one of them that's interesting is the swipe card model.
Okay, I'm imagining a tiny credit card reader in our noses.
Right.
Tell me more about this swipe card idea.
So for a credit card to work, it needs the right shape to fit in the reader, and it needs the right magnetic strip to be recognized.
Right.
The swipe card model thinks smell works the same way.
Okay.
So the molecule needs the right shape to fit the receptor, but it also needs the right vibrational frequency to trigger the signal.
So it's like a two-factor authentication system for smell.
Exactly. It needs both the shape and this vibrational password for the receptor to activate.
Okay, that's cool.
It's a really neat way to try and explain these conflicting observations about shape and vibration.
So it sounds like we're still putting together the pieces of this puzzle of how
Yeah.
smell really works. What are some of the challenges that researchers are facing?
One of the biggest is that olfactory receptors, they're so hard to study.
Right.
They're buried deep inside cell membranes.
Yeah.
So it's really tough to isolate them and look at them, and their structure is super complex. We still don't even have a complete picture of their 3D structure.
So it's like you're trying to work out how a car engine works, but you can't open the hood.
Yeah, exactly. We need to come up with better tools, new techniques that can probe the inner workings of these receptors at the molecular level. Like, there's this really cutting-edge technology called cryo-electron microscopy.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
And it lets us see the structure of these biomolecules in amazing detail.
Right.
And that's what's going to help us unlock the secrets of olfaction.
I can't wait to see what the next big breakthrough is. But for now, I think it's important to just step back and think about how amazing our sense of smell is. It's something we take for granted, but it's incredible biological engineering. And it might even be connected to the quantum world in ways we're only just starting to understand.
Absolutely. And it just shows how powerful scientific curiosity is. Like, how do we smell? It seems so simple, but it can lead us down this rabbit hole of biology and chemistry and physics and even quantum mechanics. And it reminds us that even in the everyday stuff, there are these amazing mysteries just waiting to be uncovered.
So it's mind-boggling to think our noses could be tapping into this quantum world every time we smell something.
Right.
But is there evidence for this in humans? I mean, are there studies that say we can sense these molecular vibrations too?
There's this really interesting study that looked into that.
Yeah.
And it focused on whether humans can tell the difference between normal molecules and their deuterated counterparts.
Deuterated. That sounds complicated. Can you explain that in a way that I can understand?
Okay, so think back to high school chemistry class. Remember isotopes. They're atoms of the same element with the same number of protons but a different number of neutrons. Deuterium is a hydrogen isotope. It's basically a heavier version of hydrogen.
Okay, I vaguely remember that. So how does that relate to smell?
Because deuterium is heavier than regular hydrogen, when it replaces hydrogen in a molecule, it changes the vibrational frequency. It's kind of like tuning a guitar string. A thicker string vibrates at a lower frequency.
So the idea is if our noses are sensitive to vibrations, we should be able to tell the difference between a molecule with regular hydrogen and one with deuterium.
Exactly, even though they're almost identical chemically.
Right.
And some researchers decided to test that.
Okay.
In one study, they gave people two versions of this molecule called acetophenone, one with normal hydrogen and one with deuterium.
And what happened? Could they smell the difference?
Well, in that study, they couldn't really tell the two versions apart. And this made some scientists question if the vibration theory really worked for humans.
So it's like a dead end for the quantum nose idea in people.
Well, not so fast.
Okay.
Some researchers thought that maybe the effect was just too subtle to detect with acetophenone.
Okay.
It's a pretty small molecule. It only has 8 hydrogen atoms that you could swap with deuterium. So the vibrational difference might not have been big enough to make a difference in what people smelled.
So they needed to scale up, use a molecule with way more hydrogen atoms to make that vibration difference bigger.
That's the idea. So they turned to musk molecules.
Okay.
They're much bigger, and you can replace up to 28 hydrogen atoms with deuterium.
Wow.
That makes a much bigger shift in vibrational frequency.
So musk versus deuterated musk, did that make a difference?
Yeah, the results were really interesting. This time, all 11 people in the study could clearly tell the normal musk apart from the deuterated musk. They said the smell is definitely different.
Okay, that's pretty convincing. Does that mean we officially have quantum noses?
It's really good evidence, and it definitely supports the vibration theory. But we still need more research to fully understand how human olfaction works and how quantum stuff might be involved.
It seems like every time we solve one part of the mystery, there's another layer underneath.
That's science for you, right? We keep pushing the limits of what we know, and with every discovery, there are new avenues to explore.
It makes you think what other crazy things might be happening with our senses that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah, and the implications could be huge. Like, if we could use this quantum sense of smell, imagine what we could do. Doctors could diagnose diseases just from a patient's breath, Or we could make custom fragrances that create specific emotions by changing the vibrational frequencies of the odor molecules.
That's wild. It sounds like sci-fi. But I guess who knows what's possible. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Even if we say, okay, we might have these quantum noses, how do scientists actually study something as complicated and mysterious as olfaction?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges. Olfactory receptors are super hard to study. They're buried in cell membranes,
Yeah.
so it's tough to get them out and analyze them, and the structure is incredibly complicated. We still don't know exactly what they look like in 3D.
So it's like trying to understand a car engine without opening the hood.
Yeah, exactly. We need to develop better tools, new techniques that can look at how these receptors work at the molecular level. There's this new technology, cryo-electron microscopy,
Right.
that lets us see the structure of these biomolecules in incredible detail.
Right.
And that's what's going to help us figure out how olfaction really works.
I can't wait to see what they discover next. But for now, I think we should just appreciate how complex and amazing our sense of smell is. It's something we don't really think about much, but it's really incredible how it works. And it can even be connected to the quantum world in ways we're only just starting to understand.
Absolutely. It's really a testament to how powerful curiosity is. Like this basic question, how do we smell?
Yeah.
It can lead us down this rabbit hole of biology, chemistry, physics, even quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
And it shows us that there are these mind-blowing mysteries hidden in the everyday things around us.
You know, it's just wild to think that something like smell could be linked to the quantum world.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder if something like smell, something we use all the time, if that's more complicated than we thought, what else are we missing?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
What's really cool about smell is it's a direct chemical sense.
Okay.
It's not like sight or hearing where you're detecting waves.
Right.
With smell, we're actually interacting with molecules. So those molecules, they attach to receptors in your nose,
Yeah.
and then that starts this chain reaction of signals that your brain understands as a smell.
So we're actually taking little pieces of the world in through our noses.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if our other senses have these hidden depths that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah, that could be. If quantum mechanics has something to do with smell, who knows what that means for how we think about our senses and how we experience reality. It could be way more complicated than we thought.
It's exciting and kind of scary to think about all these things happening right under our noses and we're just figuring it out.
Yeah, it is. And it just shows how important scientific curiosity is. Just a simple question, how do we smell? Can lead to all these discoveries that change how we think and teach us new things about the universe.
It's a good reminder that we can always learn more, even about the stuff we think we know. So as we finish up talking about the quantum sense of smell, what's the one big thing you hope people will remember?
I hope people remember the wonder of it all. Smell is such a powerful sense. It's connected to our feelings and our memories. And if it turns out that it's even more complex than we ever imagined, that's pretty cool. It means there are still surprises out there. The world is full of them. There's always something new to discover.
I love that. It's been awesome talking about the world of smell with you. I feel like I understand it so much better now. And maybe next time I smell something, I'll be thinking about those molecules vibrating and electrons tunneling, making that smell happen.
It was fun, yeah. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us. Keep smelling things, keep being curious, and keep exploring.